is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
I'm ready. I'm ready. We're a mess today. Welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet, and I'm here in the studio with Lerone Landis. And the late Patti Fink was with us, but she has since blacked out. Our guest today
on
is
Facebook.
Our guest today is Roger Wedell. He is the secretary of Texas Pride Impact Fund, which is a community foundation for the LGBT community. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you.
You were on a couple of years ago talking about forming it.
Yeah.
And
lots
formed.
happened. Yes.
What's
I
happened?
think the last time we were here, we'd done the incorporation and we were putting the board together and we were identifying kinds of our next steps. I don't even know if we'd gotten our initial grant from funders for LGBTQ issues.
No, it was before that.
Okay, well, we applied for a capacity building grant from them. They have an initiative called Out in the South, which is to help build philanthropy in and for the LGBTQ community in the South, where all community foundations and philanthropy in general underperform the national average by like 80%. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Wow.
It's a huge gap. So we applied for the grant to do the first ever statewide LGBTQ needs assessment. We received a grant for $50,000. We did an RFP for consultants to conduct that study, selected a team at the University of Texas, Dallas, headed by Richard Scotch and Kara Sutton.
And so you did a needs assessment in the LGBT community to find out what the LGBT community needs?
We had several agenda items for that needs assessment. One was to just do an internal statewide demographics search. Who are we in the state? Then we wanted to identify what resources are available. What needs do the community identify, and then where are the gaps between resources and needs?
So what were some of the needs?
Well, there are some that just go across the communities, across the state. One is access to culturally competent health care, and below kind of subheadings of that is across the state, transgender people, that's among the highest need. One is access to health care. One is access to competent health care. We discovered that seniors are having issues accessing health care and are struggling financially. When you look at the the long-term repercussions of unemployment or underemployment, that exacerbates financial insecurity later in life. We discovered that just generally, LGBT people in Texas earn less than our straight brothers and sisters.
Really? And that's such a counter to what I think that the notion is out there, because I always see things that say that gay men make more than, or I say gay male couples make more than all couples.
And that's just not.
It's like that's not true.
That's not
Part
true.
of the stereotype is, and they don't have children, right, Lerone?
Right.
So since you have two earners, no income,
Right.
Yeah,
no children,
no dependents.
No dependents.
So yeah, one of the skewed statistics has always been between real income and expendable income, and perhaps gay and lesbian couples who didn't have children might have had more expendable income, but they started at a lower level to begin with.
But in Texas especially, the census showed that there are more LGBT couples, same-sex couples, transgender couples, raising children than in any other state.
And 40% of LGBT people are raising children.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Another myth that's busted by fact.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you said that part of the assessment was just finding out who we are. What did you find out? Were there any surprises?
There really weren't
Okay.
any great surprises. Let me see here.
What I'm curious about is how our demographics compare to, say, statewide at large. You know, in terms of like white people, brown people, black people, and Christian people, and
now the faith components we didn't get into that. And I suspect that somewhere in this 260-page document, we could uncover a lot of that information. I don't have it memorized. What we did discover, let's see. From our respondents, this is community size and age.
You know what? Maybe during the break you'll find that.
Yeah, I can find some of that.
And we can come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Partly what we discovered is this has to be only the first statewide needs assessment, because what it indicates to us is where we need to do additional work and more specific niche work to get deeper dive on that information.
Well, for starters, just sheer numbers. Who even responded? Were the more people respond than you expected?
Actually, we had fewer responses.
Okay.
Let me rephrase that. We had fewer responses than we had hoped for. Statewide, we had 858 individuals. The research team has very high confidence in the statistical validity of the findings from that. We were disappointed because we really wanted a much higher response rate. The estimate is there are 900,000 LGBTQ individuals living in the state of Texas.
But that's consistent with Gallup and other organizations that have done studies like that in Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other area I'm sure you found that there's needs is youth.
Absolutely. And the two primary areas there are safety, just across the board, school, home, community, just safety, and housing stability.
And we have some organizations that are doing that. We probably have more of that here in Dallas than they have in a place like maybe, San Angelo.
Probably. We also had 78 organizations respond to a survey specific to service providers out of about 135, which is a really, really high rate of response.
Now, what were they telling you? Were they telling you what they do and what they're providing, or were they telling you what they would like to provide and help us fund it?
He was about to tell us. Out of 135?
What they told us, we did it by budget, 500,000 and below, 500,000 and above. And we asked them what they do, the services they provide. We asked them what challenges they had, and we asked them the sources of their funding. And there are some clear demarcations based just on budget size. But organizations across the state are facing funding issues and that doesn't matter how big, how small they are. They all have that issue.
Well, this correlates back to what you just said about being in the South. The philanthropy is woefully under.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, some interesting things we discovered was that. Oh, sorry, I got distracted there for a second.
I was just answering your phone.
Where was I going with that?
The funding.
Oh, no, challenges. The challenges. The other across-the-board issues are staff longevity. They have trouble keeping staff. In light of the whole changing environment of volunteerism, all of the organizations are struggling to get volunteers.
To get enough volunteers.
And in fact, in some cases, some organizations have increased staff because they can't get enough volunteer support.
Which takes away from their budgets, which are low in the first place.
Right. So
Vicious
there's
circle.
some interesting challenges across. The other thing, and I think this is true of all nonprofits, not just LGBTQ-focused nonprofits, getting and keeping a diverse body of governance, board of directors folks, is an increasing difficulty for organizations. And that's also tied to the changing environment for volunteerism. I mean, just generally speaking, fewer and fewer people will commit to a volunteer project that's more than 6 months long.
Wow.
So asking somebody to do a 3-year board term, and potentially 2 or 3 of those 3-year board terms, the pool of people is shrinking.
You know how I'm always saying nice things about large corporations. One of the good things that I know AT&T does this, I think Texas Instruments does this, but it really is a good thing. They will pay you if you're an employee, and not pay you for your volunteer time, but make donations to what you're doing. And you submit this volunteer time so that the company can show that this company volunteers X amount of hours. And if you work for a large corporation, they'll give you time off for some things, and it depends on what company. They'll match money that you're giving. They'll a number of things that they do, which encourages their employees to volunteer, which is a good thing.
And I was just in the market, and what I noticed among tech companies is increasingly they're offering, you get your X vacation or your paid time off or whatever, and they're putting in anywhere from 1 to 5 volunteer days that you would take off from work and commit, and I would assume you have to report in what you're going to do with those volunteer days. But I think that's phenomenal. Corporate citizenship is such that you could step up and give your time on their time.
Right, and that's 1 to 5 days. That does not meet the need for long-term commitments for governance and operational volunteer support.
Right.
Or most people, may not, the pool that they're looking from may not even work for a company that offers that. Some of these big corporations.
Well, plus the other thing is with that kind of thing, that might help big cities like Dallas a little bit. A place like Amarillo that has smaller companies probably doesn't have that as available, and
I think that's an assumption, and we don't know that.
Yeah.
The other emerging pattern, both for philanthropic support and volunteer support, are employer affinity groups. Particularly LGBTQ-aligned employer affinity groups are really stepping up across the state. That became really clear to us at a recent gathering in San Antonio.
Okay, so we're talking to Roger Wedell. He's the secretary of the New Texas Pride Impact Fund, which is a community foundation for the LGBT community, funding projects and other things within, I guess, projects. Or
Projects.
Yeah, within the LGBT community. What is a communities foundation?
My comrade in arms, Judy Sherman, is the person who knows that. A community foundation is really, it is a subgroup of, it's a private foundation, sustains on funds donated, and it identifies its sphere of influence and then offers support within that sphere. And our sphere of influence is LGBTQ communities across the state of Texas.
So Lerone, who has several oil wells, he doesn't like to talk about them, but he has a steady, huge amount of income coming in. If he would like to take this money and pass it on to the community rather than to his daughter, who's always got her hand open to him for bucks.
That is true.
Right.
He could form his own foundation under this umbrella, couldn't he?
No. Well, no.
Okay.
He could establish a fund within the foundation.
Okay, I'm just wording it wrong. Right.
And for a variety of reasons and circumstances, individuals will establish a donor-advised fund within a community's foundation.
Which means what?
Which means that they contribute a sum of money. Our minimum is $25,000, and they are engaged in the decision-making of where those funds go.
So they're the donor, and they're advising where they would like.
They advise the foundation on where those funds go. There are some checks and balances. They can't just tell the foundation what to do with that. They make a request. But for somebody who has, if you're in a position where you get a $50,000 bonus or you inherit a sizable amount of money, the tax implications are that you might want to donate all of that at one time to this donor-advised fund and then allocate those funds over a longer period of time. So we currently have 3 donor-advised funds with us.
Awesome.
That's very good, because this is your first year operating.
So we're actually in our second year of operation, but we had really good response to that. We have we have letters of intent on estate planning gifts of over $3 million.
Wow.
So
we need to take a break, but some of this money goes into a general fund.
Yes.
And some of it could go into the Lerone Landis Fund,
donor advised
fund of the Texas Pride Impact Fund.
Right.
We're talking to Roger Wedell, Secretary of Texas Pride Impact Fund. We'll be back with more Lambda Weekly right after this.
This is Rollins Gilliland, and I'm listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3, and darn glad to be doing it.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with, Lerone Landis was with us, but he's been out drinking beer. Because he said he likes beer.
Boy, does he like beer.
And Patti woke up, she came in blacked out, but she's doing better now. You feeling okay?
Blacked out on Facebook. It's a little jolt to the head, but, so to speak.
You didn't rape anybody while you were...
Nope.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. We're worried. This was a difficult week. We're talking to Roger Wedell. He is the Secretary of Texas Pride Impact Fund, which is a community foundation benefiting the LGBT community throughout Texas. Did you actually gave some grants then this year?
We did actually give a non-competitive grant for hurricane relief, emergency hurricane relief in Houston. We did a separate fundraising campaign to do that.
Because there was a lot of damage at several of the AIDS organizations in Houston.
So we did make a $10,000 grant there. We are in the midst of our first round of competitive grants, and we received 38 applications for a total of $376,000.
Wow.
We have $120,000 to give away this first round. So we have.
Really have to make those dollars stretch.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Some good investments, and shouldn't be a problem.
We have a process in place for that. We did our initial review. We have narrowed that to 15 finalists, and we are. As of Friday, we have completed all of those 15 site visits, and our Grants Action Group will be reviewing all of those to make recommendations.
And without saying what organizations applied.
Which you can't.
Of course not. But what type of organizations applied?
We had arts organizations, we had mental health counseling organizations, we had HIV/AIDS service organizations, we had youth housing organizations, we had senior service organizations, we had...
what are the qualifications to apply?
Well, I actually printed that off, so I would... You have to be a 501c3 organization,
which means nonprofit,
or in a documented fiscal sponsor relationship with a 501c3 nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Is there a size?
No.
Okay.
No. We have part of what the funders for LGBTQ issues out in the South initiative has helped all of us in the South understand is some of the best work may not be happening at the long-time organizations. It's not that they're not doing great work, but maybe look outside urban centers for creative projects that are meeting needs where there are no service providers. Mm-hmm. So we actually gave preference in this first round to grant applicants that were targeting needs outside of urban centers. It became clear to us from the needs assessment that there is this chasm between what's available in urban centers and what's available in non-urban areas of the state.
By non-urban, are you talking about just small cities or really rural?
Well, we're talking, I think the definition that they used in the research was 75 miles outside of an urban center would qualify.
But you know that I think that's so smart, because if we're struggling with people to serve and volunteers and money donations, the visibility of a group that's able to do the services they intend to do, that visibility in a small community, it can help gain volunteers and more giving. And I mean, it's really kind of like the whole idea of Emily's List, early money is
early
like easy.
money.
And so, that can just, bloom out there in rural areas.
We actually, without giving, I don't want to give too much information, but we did a site visit with an organization that's been around for a number of years. We were the first foundation to visit them.
Wow.
They were so excited that somebody from outside their little town was interested enough in what they're doing to come visit them and find out more about them.
In person.
In person is exactly right.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
That was exciting for us, exciting for them.
I'm excited hearing about it.
Yeah. So let me, rather than, folks can go to our website, txpif.org. You can find all of the grant eligibility requirements. You can find our funding priorities for this current grant cycle. You can find a, it's a 33-page summary of the needs assessment, and you can also find the complete needs assessment document. It's all available. we made the commitment up front that this was not information for our private use. This is information that belongs to the communities across the state.
When you say funding priorities,
Yes.
Some of the things you mentioned were senior services, youth services, things like that, right?
Yeah.
There's another one that I was going to ask about, the employment.
Employment.
Okay.
Because our
healthcare.
communities are underemployed, we put out there as a funding option programs or projects that might increase the employability of individuals, whether it's skills building, life skills building, how do you interview, how do you do a resume, all those kinds of things, with a particular target within the transgender community. Healthcare, we really were more interested in capacity building in order to meet unmet need. And again, there was a subcategory to increase access for transgender persons. For seniors, it's decreasing social isolation and increasing financial security. And then social support, decrease isolation in non-urban areas. And the second heading under that really kind of, I think we knew it, but we didn't know it with data. We got feedback, again, across the state, across race and ethnicities, across age, that our communities are struggling with intercommunity racism, sexism, and gender normatism. So
I believe
we
it.
wanted to put that out as an option for people to help address those. And then for youth, access to safe spaces and access to stable housing.
Now, just because these are the funding priorities, if an organization is doing something and has an idea for a program or wants to expand a certain program, and it doesn't fit one of these categories, they can still apply.
They can apply, but because these are our identified priorities, applications that address our priorities would have a higher chance.
And I guess what I'm thinking is, it might hit the committee and go, oh, wow, this is going to have all kinds of implications. And
yeah, it's possible that somebody would have a project or a program that would address a number of these, but doesn't address one specifically. So, yeah, I mean, we were open to that.
So
and next round, which would be next year, I assume these priorities will be the same, but I can't say that for sure at this point.
You might go out and see that the amount of money that you're giving is doing a good job for this and this category, and the amount of money that we have to give just isn't even making a dent for this category, so let's go where we are making a difference.
Yeah, the part of follow-up with any grant process is what was the real impact of the money and the program. You always want to see that the funds were useful and had an impact. On the other hand, several of us on the board of TPIF have gone to grantee meetings that Funders for LGBTQ Issues has brought together. And we have been exposed to a lot of different ways of looking at funding. There is one organization that doesn't make grants larger than $500.
Really?
They are focusing on seed money for innovative new programming. There's an organization that, aside from its ongoing priorities funding, has an emergency fund to be able to respond quickly to an unexpected high need someplace.
If we had a shooting like happened in Orlando, in Texas, that would be an example.
Great thing to have as an option.
Right.
Now, we've also discovered of the new groups emerging in the South, we have a much larger geography than anybody else.
Just in Texas.
Just Texas. Now, there is an LGBTQ focused foundation in the Northwest that covers 5 states. And we actually compare more with how they function and how we see ourselves
Comparable in
functioning
size?
forward. Yeah, in terms of population and geography.
Okay.
But a different organizational structure that we're looking at to see if that might help us.
Okay.
And you've highlighted some stats from your Big Thick
Yes.
thing in your brochure here, and I think some of them are really telling, because we've had some guests and our listeners have heard from organizations that have similarly identified these issues. 52% of respondents under the age of 30 experienced homelessness in the past year.
Right.
That's devastating.
Right.
27% of respondents under the age of 30 experienced food insecurity in the past year. Now, this was striking to me that in our community, because when we think of young people now, we think of millennials and, you know, the whole rub between millennials and older, what we call older people, you know, like us, all of us. But that's a whole sector of people who are really, they've been homeless in the last year and food insecurity, under 30.
Right. And
Wow.
some of not to diminish the statistic, not all of those are folks who are living on the street. Those are folks who don't have secure, ongoing housing. They might be couch surfing. So they're 3 or 4 days with this friend, a week with this friend.
But they could be homeless any minute.
Exactly.
If it could happen to any one of us in this room, you know, it could happen to them even quicker, minute to minute.
Oh, right. I mean, and it is the accumulated impact of that insecurity that has long-term effect on a person.
Wow. It's just amazing. Over 25% of respondents aged 50 and over have postponed health care due to the insufficient resources. I have so many examples among my friends where that is so true.
Well, the cost of health care, when you turn 60, you don't qualify for Medicare. The price skyrockets to the point where who can afford it? If your company offers, you're lucky if they're not covering a whole lot of it. What do you do?
Well, that whole 50 to 65 range is really hard in there. And transgender women are out of work and seeking employment at a whopping rate of 36%, compared to transgender men, 19%, and cisgender men and women, both 4%.
Right.
So if the unemployment rate's 4% for the community,
Across the state of
the
Texas.
population at large, that's enormous.
That is enormous.
One in
It's
three,
almost 10
one in-
times.
one in
It's
three.
almost 10 times
Yeah.
the unemployment rate.
Here's the one that really
Wow.
jumped out at me. That totally plays into maybe a cultural stereotype, but this is kind of backing it up. African Americans and Latinx were approximately 15% more likely to report access issues and impediments to receiving behavioral health care, which includes treatment for mental health and substance abuse. And, you know, in communities of colors, again, the stereotype is they don't talk about mental health issues. They certainly don't go talk to a therapist or a counselor. That kind of backs it up. That is high.
Right. And partly why they don't, it's not available. Yeah. And outside urban centers, even if the resources are available, they are not culturally competent for our communities.
right.
And in fact,
You know, when they say, like, how long have you been a faggot? You know, kind of.
right. Or even more blatant, we don't treat people like you.
Right.
You need to go to Dallas, or you need to go to Houston, or you need to go.
And
someplace
do you know, I
else.
did a story that touched on transgender healthcare a few weeks ago, and the person I was talking to, I said they were talking about really bleak healthcare for transgender people in a lot of places. I said, was there any place that surprised you in your study where it was pretty good? And they said, yeah, Lubbock. And I said, why? They said, university there.
They have a medical school.
And they, yeah, they have a medical school. But would you think off the top of your head, yeah, Lubbock's not too bad if you're transgender?
Yeah, that is surprising. I mean, I know they have a huge university out there, but it's still Lubbock.
Yeah.
So it's counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive, but you know what?
So that's surprising.
Gotta give them credit.
Give them credit.
Give them credit for that.
Yeah.
So there are some smaller cities in the state that are doing a fairly good job.
But if you talk to a lot, especially trans women and trans women of color, who are successful in getting in to see healthcare providers, they have to educate them. They have to educate it on how to treat. I'm telling you how to treat me,
right.
Because you're so terribly ignorant about what my needs are in terms of hormone replacement therapies and other types of treatment that may be unique to transgender bodies and minds, and so. It blows my mind that there would be so many that encounter that. 36%.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's amazing.
And before we get away, I wanted to be sure to highlight one thing. One of the common responses from organizations when they hear about Texas Pride Impact Funds is, are you taking dollars away from us to give to somebody else? And that is not our goal nor our intent. And in fact, on our website and on our materials where we solicit major donors or ongoing donors, we clearly state we do not want your contributions to us to diminish your giving to the organizations you already support. Our goal is to increase the philanthropic base and to increase support in areas that don't have as much support. One of our best marketing angles for both Houston and Dallas has been, your dollars are for the entire state.
Right.
Think about what's available and not available in East Texas and West Texas and the border. We have an opportunity to bundle our resources and make major impacts in those areas.
Right.
And if someone is thinking about leaving their estate to a fund for that purpose, what a legacy that could be.
Exactly.
If you actually made a permanent difference and an impact in the valley. In East Texas.
We need to take a break. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 KNON FM. I'm Dave Taffet here with Lerone Landis, the late Patti Fink, Roger Wedell, who's the secretary of the Texas Pride Impact Fund. That's txpif.org if you want more information. Is here with us. Stick around. We have a little bit more to go. We'll be back with more right after this.
Hi, this is Valletta Lil, and I listen to Lambda Weekly. I hope that you will too.
And welcome back to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. Our guest is Roger Wedell. He's a former president of Dallas Gay and Lesbian Alliance.
That's right.
Yes.
Patti, you are the current president?
Yes.
And have been for the last 30 years?
Yes, but we're very vamping. But that's a whole other show.
Okay.
That's when I joined the board of the GLA, Roger was the president. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's a while back.
And
it's been a while.
The reason I'm introducing him that way is Roger was here to talk about Texas Pride Impact Fund. We're going to talk a little bit more about it just before the end of the show. We couldn't get away without talking about Brett Kavanaugh, could we?
Brett Beer Kavanaugh.
Beer Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that about?
Oh, wow.
And Roger, feel free to jump in here.
Woman in the room here. I was thoroughly disgusted by his behavior. Just his behavior, regardless of what the accusations may have been. His behavior was not worthy of a lifetime appointment as a justice of the United States Supreme Court.
And actually violated one of the key elements of the American Bar Association's description of federal judges.
The
that they
partisanship.
should
Partisanship.
appear nonpartisan, unbiased in all respects.
In all areas of life as
Yeah.
well. Certainly in your job interview.
You would think.
And what they're talking about is during his answering, he absolutely made no bones about calling out Democrats.
Well, he screamed at him, and he was flippant and disrespectful when
Amy Klobuchar
Yes,
asked
Amy
him a
Klobuchar.
question about, have you ever blacked out? No, have you?
Yeah.
And then she wanted to move on and get him to answer the question. And she said, "No, I want to know. Did you?" And I mean, it was.
Yeah.
He came back and
If she
apologized
did
for that.
did
But
If she
apologize
did
for
that
it.
in his court, she'd be in jail under contempt of court.
Yep.
Well, any
Yes.
woman who had appeared at a Senate hearing and behaved like Lindsey Graham and Brett Kavanaugh would have been dismissed from the hearing.
yes, absolutely. Lindsay,
It was-
Miss Lindsay was out of control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it today or tomorrow? It marks actually the 1-year anniversary of the Me Too movement, since that became the hashtag.
Oh, I didn't know there was a specific start date.
Yeah, it is. But I just think what we're seeing right now is just so. I'm disgusted by more so than people's reaction than I am with Brett Kavanaugh. We were talking before the show, and it's good that you're blacked out on Facebook right now, Patty.
Well, there's a whole reason for that. You will see women across
Yes.
Facebook today. It's like what world would
Right.
we be in without women?
That's true.
Where are the women?
But some of the responses to Dr. Ford is just mind blowing. And when you see this, you will see if you sit and think about it, you will understand why more survivors don't say anything. I can't even repeat the stuff that the people are saying about her on air. And then, it's one thing, fine, if you don't believe her. That's fine. You're entitled to that. But how they're talking about her, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it is disgusting.
Well, we were just talking about this in our own community, the sexism, but the misogyny and sexism in the community, the population at large in the United States is just overwhelming, and people don't believe it's there. Oftentimes,
Right.
when we don't have a heated issue like this, they'll say, "Oh well, most guys aren't sexist." Blah blah blah. We hear every little nuance of how men in this country are, in fact, misogynist. And they'll, guess who's been holding us back for millennia? Well, it's been men. So it's really ironic that they're the ones saying it's not there. But I think this week really highlights how deeply embedded it is in our society.
It is.
I wish I could remember the quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she actually used it in one of her arguments before the Supreme Court, I think, about not wishing ill for her brothers and but get your feet off our necks.
Right. And she also said one time, someone asked, she goes, I get asked all the time, when will there be enough women on the court? And nine. She says nine.
What's the appropriate number for women on the court?
Yeah.
Nine. There were 9 men for decades.
For decades.
And nobody seemed to bother them.
them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's what occurred to me while I was watching it. His temperament, first of all, is not the temperament of a judge that I want to stand before and testify about anything. He's not somebody who seems like he would get along with the other judges. If you look at the Supreme Court, Alito, do you have a problem with his temperament?
No.
Roberts, do you have a problem with how he conducts himself? I'm not talking about any of his rulings or anything at all, but would you, from one of his rulings, say, how did he ever become a judge? They're sound legal opinions, and it's delivered in a very respectful way. Can you imagine this guy working with RBG?
I just can't even picture John Roberts working with him, much less RBG and Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor.
Here's the other thing
to
that
be in his
occurred to me.
presence, even.
Here's the other thing that occurred to me. If he didn't do these things, what was he so upset about? I get that this judgeship was promised to him, and he was told there would be a final vote before now, and he expected it.
The entitlement. That's the whole thing.
That's
the
it.
entitlement.
Entitlement.
This is my seat, and you're not going to take it away from me. No, it's not your seat.
He expected the smooth ride in, and it's not going that way.
But what was he so annoyed and upset about? Now, I could see him being upset if he thinks he might be indicted for this, because, Roger, you were saying before the show.
I would say I've read. I have not
and I've read that too.
But there is no statute of limitations
in the state of Maryland.
In the state of Maryland.
Right. I read that too.
Right.
So
and that prosecutors in Maryland had already said they would be happy to open an investigation and pursue that charge.
So here we have somebody, if he's appointed to the Supreme Court, there's going to be a continuing investigation possibly into his conduct. Has that happened before? Not in my lifetime.
Now, what really angers me about this is the best they can do. This is the best the Republicans can do. If I feel as a woman that part of the Supreme Court is already tainted with Clarence Thomas on there, because I believed Anita Hill and I believe Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. I believe her. I do not believe him. He patently lied to the committee about basic, urban dictionary terms that we all grew up with. He lied to them about what those meant and what those definitions
he lied about the drinking age when he was in high school. He said that when I turned 18, it was legal to drink. No, it wasn't, because a year before he graduated is when Maryland increased their drinking age
to 21.
So he lied about that too.
And what's insane to me is these are little lies. He lied about Devil's Triangle, about boofing, about the 7 Fs and all that, and everybody knows what those mean. And if you put them back into his little blurb in the yearbook and read through it, it's about drinking and violating women. Mm-hmm. That's what his high school yearbook was expressing. Was a big admiration for drinking and basically abusing women. And to lie about that, I think was petty, and I think was self-serving. But the fact that he lied about it under oath. Mm-hmm. And what is this? Under penalty of felony, because that's the same wording that Mark Judge, his friend, put in his little statement. I thought, well, they're all in cahoots together because using this odd turn of phrase.
Right.
But that's what struck me is if he's willing to lie about the little things, he's willing to lie certainly about the big things. He's no different than Trump. In his behavior sitting there at the table, in his choice to tell the truth or not tell the truth.
I didn't do it. Why was he acting like this? That's what I want to know.
So the FBI investigation, which they did allow limitedly, wraps up this coming Friday, or they have until Friday. Mm-hmm. So here's the big question: do you all think he's confirmed or not? Yes. Regardless of what the FBI finds. Again, the FBI doesn't find guilt or innocence. They just provide you what they found.
Right. Yes. Do I think he'll be approved? Yes.
I do too, unfortunately.
I do too, and I posted this on Facebook earlier this week, but there was a Marist, I think it was a CNN Marist poll, and 54% of Republicans, those who self-identified as Republicans, 54% said that he should be confirmed to the high court, the highest court in our land, for a lifetime, even if the attempted rape was true.
Right.
Okay, so
that's
what I'm saying.
Amoral.
That's a moment. This is a moment.
It's an unhinged
Here's
place.
A comment that I heard that I agree with. This was basically his job interview, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Patty, you just went through a job interview process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk about rape or beer during your job interview?
No, and nor was I accused of anything regarding rape or beer.
If those subjects come up during your interview, here's a clue: you probably didn't get the job.
It's insane to me that we would go forward with this, and certainly if the FBI, it'll be very interesting if the FBI can corroborate these allegations, and if they make Mark Judge go on record under oath, under questioning by an FBI investigator, whether they come back with substance in their report back to the committee, and they still choose to confirm him, that will be insane. But I have to say, I was both impressed and not impressed by Jeff Flake this week. He's been on the wrong side of many issues most of his career, in my view. But he was cornered in an elevator by women and he was looking away, and one of them said, "You look at me while I'm talking to you," and told him the story of their experiences with the sexism and the sexual assault that goes on in this country. And it was after that he said, "This is dividing our country. We need to do something about it." And so I was impressed that he did it, but I'm not impressed either, because if any of us had been cornered by a constituent,
he'd already indicated that he would approve.
Yes, he did. You're absolutely right, Roger. And and what's disturbing to me, though, is that there's so many women. If you go on Facebook, if you go on other social media, you see women telling their stories. And I thought it was really telling that someone posted, if I were to tell people that someone hit my car, they would believe me. But if someone attacked my body, there's all of this doubt that happens. So they would believe that someone hit a physical object I own, but they would not believe that someone hurt my body and me. That to me just kind of says it all. It's amazing that you wonder why women are so strong. It's because we have to be.
We're almost out of time. I want to go back to the other Roger Wedell, the one who is currently Secretary of Texas Pride Impact Fund.
Which does not take stances on political issues.
Which does not take political stance. In fact...
Or make political observations.
Or make observations, make comments.
And you don't do political contributions.
We do not.
That is one thing that you don't do.
Yeah.
You're giving to nonprofit organizations. Basically, right now, you're concerned with employment, healthcare, seniors, youth, and social support.
Right.
Under social support, what comes under that?
Well, that's where we at least offered the opportunity for groups to address intercommunity racism, sexism, gender normatism.
Okay.
So it was kind of
a broader subject,
broader area, looking for maybe some innovative ways to do that. And I would encourage people, if you're looking at a way to continue your philanthropic giving after you are no longer living, foundations and donor and funds set up within community foundations are a way for you to do that. If you really are passionate about the groups you support now, you can continue that.
Now, to have their own donor-advised fund, you need $25,000 to start the fund.
Yes.
If somebody wants to make a donation, and you bundle donations so that you are raising money, any minimum donation?
Oh, no. There's a Donate Now button on our website that you can...
so if somebody wants to donate $25, and you take it and you give it to the LGBT organization.
That becomes part of our grant-making operations. Right.
Oh, I thought Lerone's mouth was open like he was about to say something.
I will say we currently have a statewide initiative called First 100 Funders. And those are individuals who commit to a total gift of $3,000 over 3 years. And some are doing it monthly, some are doing it annually, and some are just writing the check all at one time. And those folks get listed on the website, they get acknowledged at our events, and we're happy to visit with anybody about major gifts, donor-advised funds, and legacy giving.
And we're just about out of time.
Thank you, Roger.
Next week we have a music show. And we were talking before the show, Lerone, wouldn't it be nice if we could say at some point, Lambda Weekly brought to you by a generous gift from the Texas Pride Impact Fund.
Just putting it out there.
Just putting that out there. Our show is not brought to you by a generous donation from anybody but our listeners, so we appreciate all of you. Have a good week. We'll be back with more Lambda Weekly next Sunday.